But as far as our personal thing, it's like, I mean, we all know that in the course of a day, we go through many different levels of understanding sometimes. Like, you know, I've woken up in a really cruddy mood sometimes, and the world looks cruddy, and I don't like my breakfast, and my coffee doesn't taste right, and, you know, and maybe I take a nap, and I get up, and, oh, right, you know. Those are separate realities. They're two distinct separate realities. Or if you want to look at it on a bigger scale, if we look at the reality I was living in before I had any understanding, and I look at the reality that I live in now, they're completely different worlds. Now, what's interesting about that to me is some of the same things thought-wise occur within those two worlds. Like, I can still think the worst thoughts I thought 45 years ago, but it doesn't mean the same thing because I see them from a different place. So, yeah.
And you know what I love about what Sid said on that tape yesterday? That, you know, separate realities are different levels of consciousness, but the common ground is that we all have separate realities. Full stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
I heard that differently yesterday.
Yeah.
And I've listened to that tape countless times, but I'd never heard that like full stop. And for me, you know, it's this thing about the oneness that is getting more pragmatic. Like, the oneness to me was so over my head. Like, who could talk about the oneness but Sid? But now, as kind of an ordinary Joe, I'm getting a little tiny inkling of this oneness here at a very pragmatic level. And I'd like to share an example, and we'll come back if there's more questions. This will be a really kind of conversational thing with you all today as well. But this example of somebody on the webinar just a few days ago said, you know, Elsie, I don't get this oneness. I was driving in my car, and, you know, I was contemplating this oneness, and intellectually, kind of the logic of human and spiritual, like, you know, intellectually, I could kind of see that, but I don't get it. And he said, then I had this insight about, wow, if my thoughts are clearer, I'm living a clearer life. I have less stress. And he said, I just welled up inside. You know, I just filled up inside. I said, look, that's the oneness. Like, the oneness, the insight of that you had came from you, from mind, consciousness, and thought in you, and you felt that. Your human body felt the elation. You understood via thought that insight. That's the oneness. You get an insight and you feel it, form and formless. That to me was so pragmatic. How simple can you get? It's not this kind of esoteric thing, oh yes, we're all energy, well let me figure out all this energy, is this real, is that real? You have an insight, you feel it, form and formless connected. Mm-hmm. That's the oneness. I can see you nodding. I can see you going like, wow, really? It's that simple? It's that simple.
Yeah, it is.
And then he got it. He said, wow. Like, his insight was the formless manifesting into form via the feeling and his understanding that expanded that level of consciousness. Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So even us ordinary Joes can get a little tiny glimmer of what this oneness means in our life. And part of the pragmatism of this, because I'm practical, like, and again, Sid always said to us, look for results. Like, the results are going to tell you more than anything else if you see results in your life and in others. And I tell you, when we walked in, the first meet and greet, there were people I didn't recognize that I've known for years, and Chip and Jan were the same that know these people.
Yeah.
And I was looking at them and I thought, who are they? And I thought the one person, because her arm was kind of up like this, shading her face from the sun, I thought, oh, well, that's because she's kind of hiding her face. And then she took her arm down and I thought, oh my goodness, that's so-and-so and so-and-so. I did not recognize them. And then later I said to Chip and Jan, you see those two people over there? And they said, yeah. And they didn't recognize them either because they've changed so much.
Yeah.
But they weren't really aware of it. We're the last to know. Which is like kind of the good news and the bad news. But you look in the mirror. You just look in the mirror. And for me, that pragmatism of seeing a little tiny glimmer of what this oneness is, it's brought a gentleness into my life. Because I'm feeling so much a part of something bigger that I can ultimately count on. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to go anywhere. I just live in my true nature more of the time. And so it's brought a gentleness to me, and consequently a gentleness to those I come in contact, and more love for the world.
This quiet, like right now, and the quiet we felt yesterday, that's the melting of separate realities. That is the melting of separate realities. Separate realities are only supported by thought. Right? And I loved your question about thought too. Like, there's just so much discussion in the community about thoughts right now.
Chip, can I just stop you for a minute?
Sure.
Because I love what you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've never heard you say that. That's new.
Yeah.
That's a new thing that came out of you. And I just love what you said.
Oh, thank you.
That is so...
Yeah, where does that come from? I don't know.
Look, Chip. It's the oneness. Honestly, that was delicious. I love that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's the way it feels to me when that quiet happens.
Yeah.
Like you just feel that connection, and that's the only way I could, actually now I think it's the only way I really could describe it. It's the melting of separate realities, And the same thing internally when we get quiet. All those ups and downs and separate realities melt away. Sounds like an old song, but it reminds me of that song, Let Your Love Flow. That's what happens. That's when love flows.
And honestly, I mean, the simplicity of that is the oneness that we're all feeling.
I love that you begin to see that, as long as you're alive in this world, you're going to have thought. Right? That's actually what being alive is having thought. But as we get quieter and we experience those moments, we start to experience a deeper dimension of thought. Right? Thought that's not coming from the past, not coming from conditioning, not coming from beliefs. And at some point, we actually begin to experience and feel the singular power called thought, which is not the same as thoughts. Right? And it's when we experience that singular power called thought that we have thoughts that come from, that are brand new because they're coming from that deeper dimension. They're not coming from the past. New thought. I love when new thought comes. It's just, it's telling you that you're moving in the right direction when new thought comes, you know. And it is. It's a deeper dimension of thought. In a sense, it's genius. You know, I used to think genius was the speed of the computer and its storage capacity, right? But it's not. True genius is new thought, right? And everybody has the capacity for genius in that sense, you know, of having new thought. And, you know, like I said, I realize that as long as I'm breathing, I'm going to have thought. But it is possible to get quiet enough to have new thought. And I was talking to a dear friend last night who had experienced new thought in a split second yesterday. And a feeling just welled up in him, just took over him for a moment. And I just loved hearing that, because what I was hearing was somebody slipping into a deeper dimension of thought, feeling the power of thought, the creativity of being alive, right? And being present in the now. And just when the person was telling me that, I was very touched. Very, very touched. If that's all anybody gets when they come here is one split second of being in that feeling of when it falls away and you're just present in this moment, you can't overestimate the value and the power of that. It's not possible.